So, hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 184 and in this video we continue with classes and we introduce a new keyword which is used in classes, and this new keyword is the keyword friend. And how this friend declaration works in classes is described here below. Let's read this. It says, the friend declaration appears in a class body and grants a function or another class access to private and protected members of the class where the first declaration appears. So this is the description how a friend declaration works. And here we have a syntax. The syntax, how we want to use it. We use it just very simple. We use the keyword friend. And then we make a function declaration. Or we make a friend and function definition. This function definition is a special case. We can see it here below. And why this is a special case, I will explain later with some examples. And then we have here a friend elaborated class specifier. This one we skip because we have not talked about this elaborated class specifier in detail. And then we have here friend simple type specifier or friend type name specifier, which is just another class in short. You can see it here below. We have here 3 classes. And here they use just another class, or in this way. We will talk about this in a moment, or perhaps in the next video, because in this video I think we will talk more about the first syntax here, which is just a friend, a function declaration. And now I will show you in an example how this really works, or let's say how we understand this sentence here. All right, let's get started. First of all, we need a class with a private data member. Let's create this class counter, for example, and I make the class body. And let's write here again variables, so that's easy for us as a beginner to see what variables are and where functions and all this kind of stuff are. Variables, and let's write here access specifier private, because we want to have private access specifiers here. And let's make here data, for example, int counter, assign a default value. Let's assign it 0, and that is enough. Or let's make here one more thing. Let's make here for fun public a function, a normal member function. Now I make a member function. Let's call this void member function, and a very simple one. So it's nothing doing. It is just, I need it just for demonstration purposes. That's why I created here a very simple class. Has only one private data member, which is a variable counter, and a public member function. So now we go back to our friend declaration. And the first thing, when we create a friend function, we start with this function, is we don't start to define the friend declaration directly in the class which we want get access. So what I mean with that, so for example, we have here a class. I want to access this private member. And normally you say, okay, you want to access this private member, then you make here, like they say, a friend function. Here, friend and a function declaration. But this works not this way. Why I say this? Because normally what you have is first a function anywhere declared, and this function is then saying I need this class private data member. So let me demonstrate you that. So here is a class that was defined before, you can see, and now I make a function which is not a class member in this case. So it is not a class member of this class here, because this class member here this here has anyway access to this private member of this class. We know this, right? We learned this. If I define a function within a class which is a member of this class, has access to this variable. But now I am defining a function in a global space. For example, here, let's call this just void, and I want just print out a number. Print a number. You see, it's a normal function. It is not a member function. And now comes the important part. This normal function, which is not a member function, is interested to print out a number, but not any number. This function won't print out this private int counter. Here, this private counter member number of this class. But we know this counter here is private. And yes, so how it is possible for this class to get access to this one? We know already different ways. For example, I could make this variable public. Then I can use it here outside. Or I can use getter and setter function. Then I can use it outside. And now we learned also the new keyword here. This is this print function declaration. This is also a way to make get it outside. But let me finish this function here first, because this function what I made here is not finished. Why it's not finished? Because right now I have no parameters to get access to this class. How I get access to this class? In this parameter here, you can specify this type here, for example, counter. All right, then you can create a variable. Let's say I want to access this one here. Let's call this, oh, that's very bad. We have here counter and counter. Oh, let's call this not counter. Let's call this result. Let's call this result. Or let's call this number. Number, sorry for that. So now I have here counter and I make here number, and I call this number param because this is a parameter, and this number is just so that I know, I want this one here. So this is one way to create a parameter which is connected now to this class, but we also know we should make this all-time const reference because we don't want a copy of this class, and we make it const. We want not backwards change this variable accidentally. That's why we use all time this const reference. All right, I hope you know this as well. But the important part is now, okay, I created here a function which is not a member function outside, and now I use here this parameter. Let's use this, paste this, and now I use the access specifier, the member access specifier, and this is not a pointer, so I use the dot. And when I use here the dot, you can see there is nothing popping up. And nothing popping up means you there is nothing you can access in this class, and the reason for that is this is private. But actually that's not true. Here I have public too. Why is this not popping up? I hope you know why this one is not popping up. Think about it fast. I solve it in a moment. You can pause it. And now I say it. This one here is not popping up because we have here a const, right? And const means you should provide a const version of this one. Then it would pop up, because then it says, we learned this, you have to provide a const version of this function. And you can see now this one is popping up when this one is a const, because here we made it const. And we learned this in our 2 videos before, or anywhere there. So let's continue. We know this. This is not so important right now. Important is now this private. we want to access this private variable here because I want print this number out, right? Here's this number and I want print it out here. So, and now we are using the new word friend, this friend function declaration. And that's why I said you should start not creating a friend declaration here, because you need first a function or another class who is interested in this class here and try to access this specifier, because now it makes sense. Okay, this function is interested in this variable, so we need to add to this class a friend of this declaration here. And let's make this now. Copy, for example, we can add it where we want. Let's add it in the section of, let's make here a function section. And let's add it just here. We need the keyword friend. We need the function declaration. This is just this one. And that's it. Now I added just a function declaration here. And now when I test this one, if I have access, you can see, yes, I can access this number here, which was private. All right, I have access to it. But let's think again one moment. Is this friend, the function declaration, a member of this class? No, it is not. That's very important. It is not a member of this class. What I mean with that is, if you try, for example, here we have a variable, right? This one is a variable of this type class. And when I use again this access specifier, you can see it is only showing me here this member function and number. And also if I put this one here to the public section, let's make this one also public to be sure. Public. So, oops. Public again. So this access specifier is also public here. And let's try this again. You can see it is still not showing as a member. All members will be showed here. This is a member. This is a member. This is not a member of this class, but it is defined now, declared now as a friend in this class. And this is a little bit irritating. So that's very important that you learn when you read the keyword friend, this will be not a member of the class. You can't call it outside. Let's say you try to make here a counter variable outside in main. Let's do this here as well. It's the same thing like here. And let's call it a counter object. And now I have made a counter object, and let's try to get access to this friend here from here with this counter object. And this one is the same like this one here. It will be not accessible. Let's try use the access specifier. And now you can see member function. I have just access to the member function here. And interesting is, you can see here, I have not access to number. That's the different. That's why we use the friend. This function here, he has access to number and the other public member here. You can see that because we declared this a friend declaration. You give access private. This object here is just a normal variable, a normal object, and this one here follows the normal rules of the class, which says this is still private for you. So which means I have only access to the one public member, which is in this case the only public accessible function is this one here. This one is private. This one is anyway not a member, so you can't access and call this here in any way, more or less. And that's very important to understand here. So, and let's go here one step further, because if you understand this, it's good. But what you can do even more with that. And what you can do is, for example, you can use this one function here, not just access one class. You can even access different kind of classes, because a project will have probably more classes, and sometimes it's interesting to have access to private members of different classes. And to avoid to make all these private members public or use these getters and setters, you can just add this function declaration to all these classes where you want access these private members, right? And the good thing is, only this one function who is declared as a friend will have access to these private members. So it is still a good way to give access to private members outside of a class, because you still know that it is only used in special places, and the special places are this friend declaration. So you have just to follow this friend declaration and you will know where these private members are used outside. And like I showed you here, if you create here again 1,000 other classes, these other objects have not access to this private variables, and that is a good thing. But let me show you fast what I mean when you make here another class. Let's copy this one here. Let's copy this one. Let's call this not counter. Let's call this calculator, for example. And let's call this one here, for example, result. And let's call this, yeah, that's it normally. And we can here call this member function 2 for fun. And this one here, we have to define here in this new class as well, because this function says, I want access this private members here, and not only this one private member, it can access all private members. So if you have here more private members, this friend declaration makes it possible that you can access all the private members. And now this friend function says, hey, I want also access the private members of this calculator. And what you do is just, okay, I put my friend declaration here in this class as well. And now this function here has access to this private members, to this private members, and can use it in his function body. And the good thing is, like I said before, if you still create objects here with calculator, the variable is private in other places, but not private in this one special function here. And let's do this. Let's make this possible. How is this possible? Of course, we have to create again what? Yes, we need a parameter, because we need again here a parameter who accesses this class. And you can see we make this like before. We get here the class, it's calculator. Call it calculator. This is the type. I need again a variable name for this calculator. I call it again result param, because I want access this one variable here. I call it result param. But again, we use again const reference, because we don't want make here this one works, but we don't want here a copy, because this is not performance and to waste the resources. That's why again const reference like before. And now we have our new declaration here, but careful, this one will not work, because now you must use this one here, right? Let's copy this one and replace this one with this declaration here. All right, because we have new parameters now. And replace this declaration here. And now this should work, but careful, it will not work. Let me show you why. There is one more thing to consider here, and let me try. So what I have reached with that is this function here can now use this variable here, which we created in the parameter. Let's use this here, and I use again the dot, and here is the member function, and it says here counter member function. But wait a minute, why you say member function? I thought I made a friend and I have access to this number. Where is that? Why I have here no access actually to this to this variable here. I thought when I make a friend I have access, and the problem here is this is not working. Do you know why this is not working? Pause the video and try to figure out why this is not working, but let me hover here, perhaps this gives you a hint. Let me see what it says. Expected a member name. Nah, this is not the right hint. This is a bad hint. So try to figure out why this one is not working. So you can see it is not working. This friend member is not working, but I give you a hint because it's not very easy to for starters. When you read this line here, which we have now included, this is a class counter, but look what we have here, right? This is the hint. Try to figure out what we have to do. And now I say what we have to do. What we have to do is, because we introduced here another class, the compiler must know that this class here exists. At this point here on top, at this line, the compiler will go here and say, okay, this is counter, this is the type here, but what is that? What is that here? I don't know it at this point. So what you have to do is make a class forward declaration. We made already a function forward declaration, and now we need a class forward declaration. A class forward declaration is just right here on top, class, and then right here this calculator, this type, calculator. And you can see now you are telling the compiler in this CPP file, for example, there is a class calculator, but I will define it later. Here we are defining it here at the bottom, but I'm using it already here in this class counter as a friend declaration. That's why this one here on the bottom is not working. And now I made this class calculator forward declaration. Now it will work. And here I don't need a forward declaration. Why I don't need for this second one a forward declaration for calculator, for this counter? The reason is very simple. This was defined before calculator. So the compiler is reading this one, then it goes here in and says, okay, I know counter already. I read it before I come to your class. I know it exists. And calculator, yes, the calculator yourself, that's working. All right, there is no problem. So the only problem we have here, because the counter calculator, the compiler said calculator was not here at this point, but okay, now you have set me with this class forward declaration. Later you are defining this class calculator. Now you can use this declaration here. So let's test this, if this is really working or I'm talking here only too much. So we go back to our function. Our function has this variable counter now again. I want to access this number, which is private. Let's use again the dot, and look here, we have this number. I have access to this number, but I want access also to this calculator int result here. So let's see if this is working as well. And let's print this both numbers out because it's a print number. Let's print them out very easy. Let's write here std cout, and yeah, here we can print them out. And let's test it for the other one too. So we use here now this variable name. All right, I use it. And I use again the access specifier, and I forgot here this sign here. Now it should work. And then I use here at this point this param, again the access specifier, and you can see I have result here, and result is the variable which I wanted access, this private. It is working as well. So now we can start and test this. Now we can test it, but before we can test this, we need call this, right? So how we call this? Of course, like all time, we call a normal function. This is not a member function. Don't forget this. It's a normal function. And a normal function is just called with this function name. Let's copy this, paste this in, and provide an argument. And actually, I need two arguments, right? So I need here a counter type argument and a calculator argument. A counter object we have already. Let's create a calculator as well. Let's do this. Calculator. And I call it calculator object. Calculator object, just for test purposes. And now I can provide these two objects here as an argument for this function. Let's do this. Counter object, oops, when I write it right, counter object here, and calculator object here, and the function call should work. Let's test this. And we see, yes, indeed, these are the two numbers with the default values which I have. It is working. So let's make here a fast short recap. What you should understand is you create a function first outside anywhere, or let's say this is one way. There is also another way, but we will talk this in another video. Here we create a function in the global space, and this function is interested in class variables which are private, and to access them you could make them public, but making public variables is not a good way. The next option you have is user getter and setter, but getter and setter is a little bit more work, and so you can use the option which we have here, which is just make a friend function declaration, and you put just this declaration of this function here in this class body with the keyword friend, and that's it to get access to the private members which you normally not have. So that is the first step which you should understand so far. Try this out and understand this. Okay, let me see. That was here the first thing, and all the other things here are more easy now, because if you understand this friend function declaration, the other things here what comes are based on this information more or less, and will be easy. But one more thing, we will skip this template friends. Of course, we have not talked about templates. It's a big section, but template itself is a big topic. That's why we will skip this. But here the other things we will talk a little bit more. I think I stop here, and I hope you understand this one, the first friend function declaration. If not, don't worry, read again this more in detail in a good C++ book or online resources. But the important thing is what you have to know. This friend declaration is really just giving access to private members, and important is this is not a part of the class, which means you can't call it here as an object. Let me show you this again. Here is my calculator object. Let's show it. And when I use now the member access specifier, it is just showing me the one public access specifier, and you can see this is also public because this is not a member of this class. It is not showing here, and it is also very easy to understand why this is not a member, because if this would be a member, we would have access here, right, to this private members anyway. So that is also a hint why this is not a member. That's why we don't need to create a friend to access a private member of the class. You can see this is a member, and this one has anyway access to this class. And why I'm pointing this so out is, careful, here this member here can be only a declaration too, and you can define this outside of a class. Like, let me show you what I mean with this so that you not get irritated. Let's say I have this one here, and I just define it outside of a class. And the difference is, when you define this one outside of a class, is you are using what? What are you using? You are using the class resolution operator to specify what where this member function is, right? And how we make this again? Very simple. We go here down. We define the body like before, but what we do here is, here in front of the function name, this here is here in this calculator. So you write here calculator class resolution operator, and now you can see this one looks also like a normal declaration. This one looks like a normal declaration. This one is a member declaration. This one is not a member declaration. So don't get irritated by this. This one I point out, but if you understand this, it's not a problem. Actually, it's very easy when you remember just one rule. If you read friend, you know this declaration is not a member of its class, because this declaration here is interested to access the private member. This is so a simple rule. When you remember that, then that's it all about it. Of course, you have to know how to use it and how to read it later and all this kind of stuff, but that's easy. All right, with that said, I stop this video here. I hope you understand this. We will talk a little bit more about this friend, because we have here other things, other special cases like this one and this class I want to show you as well, because we have only talked about functions, and this works also with classes to each other, class to another class as a friend. So with that said, I stop here. If you have any questions or any complaints like all the time, write it in the comments, and see you in the next video. Good luck, have fun, and like all time, don't give up. Bye.